Hey guys, it's Jamie. Today I want to talk about what it's like to be a web developer, just more about the web developer career path. So like how much do they make, like what can you be promoted to, like what do you do every day, what do you need to know to be a web developer. We're going to be talking about all these things coming up. Alright, so what does a web developer actually do? Well, for one, they need to know how to code websites, like actually write the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript to code that website. They need to be able to host that code and manage domains. So like hook up a domain such as mysite.com and make that point to the code which is hosted on some server somewhere. So hosting and domain management is very important. And then lastly, they need to be able to design, like not just code, actually like design a good user experience around the site, make sure it's intuitive for people, make sure they don't get confused. Like a good example of this is the iPhone. Like when the iPhone came out, they basically just give you a box with a phone in it. It doesn't have a manual or anything, but like people already know how to use that because they did such a good job designing the actual iPhone user interface, and actually even the device itself, like the hardware. It's all so well designed that it doesn't need a manual. Like people know how to use it intuitively, so that's like the holy grail for a web developer, is if they're so good that they can design a website that's so intuitive that it doesn't need like a bunch of pop-up banners to be a tutorial for the site. Like it's just so intuitive that users already know how to use it. Okay, now how much does a web developer get paid? Well, this depends heavily on like where in the world they live, how long, like how much experience they have and how long they've been at that company, and honestly like how good you are at marketing yourself and selling yourself in job interviews. And if you have an online presence, you'll probably get jobs which are a lot higher paying than you could otherwise get, especially if you're a freelancer. Alright, so in my experience, the highest paying jobs for web developers are going to be like in very developed countries like the United States, where there's just a lot of people spending money. Let's just say that. Especially in locations like the Bay Area and San Francisco, Seattle, or like Salt Lake City, any of these big like tech bubbles, they have really high paying jobs there compared to other places in the world. And now you can work remotely as a web developer. So if you're working with people in other countries, there's often like communication barriers. If they have a strong accent or even speak just a different language than you, that can make working together harder. Also, just like if you're talking over a Skype call, there can be delay, and that's really killer if you're trying to solve problems together or like tell someone what they need to do. So what I'm saying is like there are challenges with working overseas, so those jobs aren't typically going to be as high as paying as if you like worked in the place where they're hiring you from. So yeah, the big money is in those big bubbles in typically America, but I'm sure there are bubbles in other countries as well where there's a group of people in some tech bubble where they'll just pay an enormous amount of money, anywhere from like 70 grand a year to like 100 plus grand a year, just to be a web developer for these tech companies. Alright, so that's how much they get paid, but what do they actually do on a day-to-day basis? Well, they make websites, obviously, but like that involves a lot of things. Like you communicate with designers and the people that write the back end, or sometimes you'll even have to write the back end yourself, just depending on what resources your company has available. Like sometimes you'll work with a team that makes the back end, and then you and maybe some other people will be working on the front end. That was my experience typically. And also companies usually have something called like on-call, or like some sort of operations manager, and that's because if you're running your own servers, then things can go wrong. Like servers can get shut down, just like they just break down, like maybe one got too many requests and it just fell over. Usually you'll have some sort of monitoring system, and someone from your team will be assigned for like a week or something. So some way of distributing the work so that everyone on the team takes a shift in what's called on-call. Alright, that's it for this video, you guys. Hopefully that was educational to you guys. These are at least my thoughts, my experience having worked as a web developer, earning a six-figure salary for one of those big tech companies. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely a viable career option. Oh, also I got a new camera, you guys, and that's just so I can do like videos like this where I'm just talking as opposed to only recording my screen. Because in those ones the video quality doesn't need to be super high, but for these ones it should be. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy that improvement, and subscribe if you guys haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.